I'd now like you to think about how to prepare for receiving a batch of assignments or any form of assessment. So it's helpful. This is just kind of an outline of that process. So it's helpful even before setting the course assignments to make sure that you and the students know the assessment expectations and marking criteria. So when you're working with students, really think about communicating that well. The criteria should give guidance about what constitutes a particular grade or percentage. It can be really helpful to ask somebody, a colleague, a mentor within your department for clarification. Within higher education, people can be quite individualised and they feel that they have to sort of work through problems on their own. And this can make things quite tough for people when they're first starting. So it's really just recognising that actually there are there's a lot of people who've been through this process themselves and they're really happy to help. It's just about finding that time. So don't be afraid to ask people. It's just finding the right people who you can go to, and maybe even having a conversation with your manager about who might be a useful person to be able to ask questions to, perhaps somebody who's not got an insane workload. So then look at the ways in which colleagues in your department mark and give feedback on similar assessments using the same criteria. So are there any examples that you can read that people can email you? Check whether the assessments will be second marked, blind marked, or moderated. Make sure that students know that any mark you give is provisional and subject to the usual procedures of second and external marking. So even when you have the second mark back from the second marker and that goes out to the student receives it, it can still change, because at the end of the year there are all sorts of adjustments that happen. Often things go up rather than down, but that's not necessarily the case. So it's just keeping people aware that there's a process going on and just being clear what that is, so you're not giving people false expectations. So a useful exercise that I would like you to do is have a look at the marking process handout. And there will be an opportunity to discuss in your group and order which way you think things can go. But before you do that, I'd like you to prepare by looking at the marking process steps and giving an order that you think is right. Which way would you organise them? And I want you to bring that order with you to the Zoom session. If you'd like to do a bit more reading about this, if this is something that feels quite prominent for you, if you're due to do some marking soon, I would definitely recommend this. There's a good chapter here on marking from the Tutoring and Demonstrating a Handbook by Fred Foster et al. And this really gives you an indication of what sort of a process you might follow with regards to marking. So this is a useful thing for you to look at. What I would suggest you do when you've finished looking at this is then go back to the marking process and think about if there's anything that you would change. Would you organise it differently? Would you put things in a different place? And if you've got any notes on that, just make a note on any changes so that you can also bring that with you as well to the Zoom session. Good luck, and I hope that you find this exercise useful.